You didn't choose who you fell for. Not really. You think you did. You think it was the smile, or the voice, or the way they looked at you across a room. But beneath all of that, something much older was running the calculation. Something that has been running it for hundreds of thousands of years, long before there were rooms to look across, or words to describe what you felt. The question is, what did that look like before civilization, before dating apps, before weddings, before the concept of romance even had a name? How did the humans who came before you, the ones who wore animal skins and slept beside fires and hunted with sharpened stone, how did they actually find each other? The answer is stranger and more familiar than you'd expect. For most of human prehistory, you didn't live in a city. You didn't live in a village. You lived in a band. A small group of roughly 25 to 50 people moving together across a landscape, eating what the land offered, sleeping where it was safe. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying the social structure of early human groups. His research suggests these bands were tight, intimate, and deeply interconnected. Everyone knew everyone. There were no strangers inside the group, which means the first problem of ancient love wasn't finding someone. It was that everyone around you was already family. Incest avoidance is one of the oldest social rules in human history. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer societies, groups whose way of life closely mirrors what life looked like for ancient humans, consistently find the same pattern. People did not partner within their immediate family unit. They looked outward. And to do that, they had to make contact with other bands. This is where it gets interesting. Anthropologist Kim Sterelny at Australian National University has argued that interband exchange, the deliberate meeting of separate groups, was one of the most important social technologies early humans ever developed. Bands would gather seasonally. They traded tools, shared food, exchanged information, and they introduced their young to each other. These gatherings were, in effect, the oldest version of a social event in human history. Think of it less like a marketplace and more like a festival. People traveled days or weeks to attend, and when they arrived, something very human happened. They noticed each other. But what were they noticing? This is where evolutionary biology and anthropology start to overlap in ways that are deeply uncomfortable to sit with. Because the honest answer is that ancient humans were not looking for a soulmate. They were running an assessment, unconsciously, automatically, and ruthlessly. Biological anthropologist Helen Fisher at Rutgers University has spent over 30 years studying the neuroscience and evolution of human attraction. Her research shows that attraction operates on 3 distinct systems in the brain: lust, romantic love, and long-term attachment. Each is driven by different neurochemicals. Each evolved for a different purpose. And crucially, each was already operating in the brains of ancient humans. Lust is the oldest. It evolved to motivate the search for any viable mate. Romantic love, that obsessive, consuming focus on one specific person, evolved later, and Fisher argues it served a crucial function. It made early humans stop, to invest, to choose one person and stay. Because raising a child in the Paleolithic was not something you did alone. A human infant is, by any biological standard, absurdly helpless. For years. Compared to the offspring of almost every other species, human children require an extraordinary length of time and an extraordinary amount of resources before they can survive independently. This is not an accident. It's the result of a brain that grows slowly because it grows large. And it created an evolutionary pressure for pair bonding, for 2 adults to stay together long enough to raise that child through its most vulnerable years. Skeletal evidence supports this. Paleoanthropologist C. Owen Lovejoy at Kent State University analyzed the fossil record and concluded that pair bonding emerged very early in the hominin lineage, possibly as far back as 4.4 million years ago, in a species called Ardipithecus ramidus. The evidence is in the bones. males in pair-bonding species tend to show reduced sexual dimorphism, meaning the size difference between males and females shrinks. Because when males aren't competing as aggressively for mates, they don't need to be as large. The fossil record of our ancestors shows exactly that pattern. So long-term bonding is not a modern invention. It is ancient, it is biological, it is written into your skeleton. But here is the part that tends to surprise people. Ancient love was not private. In small band societies, every relationship was a community event. Who paired with whom affected the entire group. It changed alliances between bands. It determined who had access to which resources, which territories, which knowledge. Pairing was never just between two people. It was between two families, two bands, two social networks. Anthropologist Polly Wiesners at the University of Utah has studied the Kungsan people of the Kalahari, one of the most studied hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. Her research shows that among the Ch'atkung, marriages are negotiated, observed, and discussed by the entire community. There is no quiet elopement. There is no private proposal. The community is involved from the beginning because the community has a stake in the outcome. And yet, within that structure, something recognizable still happened. People still chose. People still felt the pull toward one specific person over another. People still sat closer than they needed to, still found reasons to be near someone, still noticed when that person wasn't there. Wiesner's fieldwork, and that of researchers like Barry Hewlett, who studied the AKA people of Central Africa, documents something remarkable: tenderness, playfulness, the specific kind of attention that one person gives to only one other person. These behaviors show up across every hunter-gatherer culture studied, not because anyone taught them, because they are human. So here is what ancient love actually looked like. It happened in motion. At interband gatherings, during seasonal hunts, around shared fires at the edge of territories. It was a glance held a moment too long, a piece of meat offered specifically to one person, a skill demonstrated in a direction someone was watching. It was slower and more public than anything you'd recognize today. But the feeling underneath it, the fixation, the warmth, the wanting to be near, that was identical. Helen Fisher describes the early stages of romantic love as one of the most powerful states the human brain can enter. Brain imaging studies show it activates the same reward circuits as cocaine. It suppresses rational thought. It narrows focus to a single target. And it does all of this without asking your permission. That hasn't changed in 300,000 years. The rituals changed. The words changed. The ceremonies changed. But the moment two people notice each other, something ancient takes over. Something that was already old when the first humans walked out of Africa. Something that kept your ancestors close enough, long enough, to raise the children who became the ancestors, who eventually became you. You are here because it worked. Every time you feel it, that specific pull toward one specific person, you are not experiencing something modern. You are running the oldest program in the human brain, the same one that fired in a young hominin at a seasonal gathering 200,000 years ago, standing close to someone, heart doing something that didn't have a name yet. It still doesn't need one.